Hello and welcome to Heart Standard. My name is Craig Cairns. We're coming to you pretty soon ahead of kickoff out in Azerbaijan, and joining me from there is Heart Standard editor Joel Sked. How are things over there, Joel?
Yeah, good. It's been traffic's been interesting getting to the stadium, but I can give you a wee. I'm just along from the press box here, perched on a camera stand, i.e., why this thing, so I can maybe give you a wee tour of the stadium.
Excellent.
So yeah, it's how do I put this back? It's actually a really cool. It's a really cool stadium. Like much cooler than it's like holds 10,000, but like much cooler than somewhere like St Mirren or any of those relatively new builds. And this is a new build, so yeah, it's. I think there was maybe some complaints or concerns about the quality of the pitch, but other than that, it's all good.
I don't know if you saw any of the games from last night. I was watching the goal show, and the pitch in Zagreb was absolutely atrocious. So it seems like you can have games. I mean, the weather looked pretty bad as well, but still there was like big mud patches where the goalkeepers were and things like that. I know that you are 3 hours ahead of us, Joe, but which time zone are you on?
Oh, I don't know.
No, I'm sorry. That was a reference to the Hearts players staying on.
Of course.
The same time zone. That's all right.
It's funny you say that because I told my missus before I came out. Said I said I'm going to stay on the UK time zone. Basically just keep with time in Scotland, and then it just easiest to transition when I get home tomorrow because as I was saying off air, we go from finishing the match, go straight to the airport. So and then. Sorry, there's some mic stuff coming through the mic. So I was just going to try and make it as easy as possible for myself and stay on UK time zone, but that's not gone well.
Well, we are going to do a quick preview of the game. We won't go too in depth because, as I say, we're recording this not long before kickoff. We're going to mainly talk about the Andrew McKinlay interview that you and a couple of other journalists out there conducted. First of all, we'll just go for hear from our sponsors, or hear from our sponsors. Hear from me talking about our sponsors, and they are, of course, Good Vibe Giveaways. Good Vibe Giveaways are proud to sponsor Heart Standard and offer fantastic prizes to fans of the club. Prizes change weekly and include tech and gadgets, days out, weekends away, tax-free cash, and even OASIS tickets. Get your tickets now at goodvibesgiveaways.com and enter for your chance to spread the good vibes. Okay, as I said, we're going to mainly talk about the Andrew McKinlay interview and a kind of shorter video today. I suppose the first thing that stands out, or the first thing that you put into the headline anyway, was there were 100 applicants, or I think McKinlay said wouldn't go as far as to say applications, but he said potential applicants, notes of interest. How many of them were from Gareth Ainsworth?
There was no names, but they asked off the record about any particular names of interest, but that was kept quiet. So unfortunately, Gareth Ainsworth wasn't mentioned. The only name that we kind of talked about on the record was we asked about Arnar Gunnlaugsson, the Viking, the Icelandic coach, just because he was the bookie's favourite. But the way McKinlay said he was not a consideration. So I had to use applicants because of word constraints on the headline. But that's so basically 800
short words of your friend.
Yes, notes of interest, but they've narrowed the list down to now. Andrew McKinlay wouldn't be as it wasn't going to be as specific as possible. He said 7 or 8 names, so they interviewed one yesterday, and I think it was one yesterday and 2 today. So he's across here in Baku, and Graham Jones, sporting director, he is in Liverpool, but he's been part of the process as well. That's been an agreement with the Scottish FA. So they've been combining, and I think I asked them about the importance of Graham Jones, because it's pointless appointing a sporting director and then not involving him in the appointment of a person he's going to have to work really, really closely with. So it's good on that aspect. Graham says, do Do you guys think there's a clear favourite just now? No, just because there is still, I think, a few interviews to take place tomorrow and over the weekend. So I think there's certainly out of the three they've done, there's definitely been a couple that have been positive by the sounds of things. So they're progressing with it. I know Hearts fans want the deal done as quickly as possible, understandably so. Probably want it done before coming back for the St Mirren game after the international break, but it's also important to be as thorough as possible, because you have to remember it's not just Hearts. The club are putting names forward. They've also got the analytics aspect of this as well, so that's thrown up a number of interesting names as well. And so they have to work through that. But I think the hope is to get someone to make a recommendation to the board of maybe a couple, and then if the board want to speak with them, potentially they can do that, or Hearts can then just go, right, we really like this person, let's go for it.
And as we've seen in the two recent managerial changes in Scotland, you inevitably hit some snags. You don't always get your first choice, all that kind of thing. And I think Andrew McKinlay was he wanted to point that out, didn't he? That there could be hurdles that delay the process. It's not, they would like to kind of do it by this international break, but there's no means that they are going to. Something else that kind of stood out for me about the managerial search was he seemed to rule out Derek McInnes without using Derek McInnes's name. I mean, I know that some people find this name boring, but the fact is it is a name that has come up, and we went over reasons for why it wouldn't work. And Andrew McKinlay seemed to confirm that without mentioning managers like McInnes. He did speak about, well, they have to be comfortable working under a sporting director. He did speak about the personal relationship that they have to have with Graham Jones, but I think he spoke about just that role sort of devoid of kind of relationships, didn't he? Like a manager that would fit into working under a sporting director.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that was I asked him about the nationality, whether it be as unlikely to be English or a British or Scottish manager. He said probably not Scottish, but not 100%. But I don't think Derek McInnes is a consideration. Just again because of as the things we've talked about is that they want someone who is willing to kind of buy into the analytics side of things, and I just like McInnes might be, but just his looking at his past, he has been someone who wants to. He holds like Hearts are a point and a head coach. He's very much a manager and oversees a lot of wants to have a big say. So yeah, I think it's going to be a name, and the fact that McKinlay also said that the people we're speaking to are guys who have not been mentioned anywhere in newspaper, as we've seen. Derek McInnes has been mentioned a lot. Gareth Ainsworth's been mentioned. Gun Lugson's been mentioned. So it's somebody that's not been mentioned. So I think they're quite happy with the fact that it's been they managed to keep the identity of their key their long shortlist under wraps.
Yeah, and you mentioned the analytics side of it. There, one of the things I found interesting, which was right at the end of the interview, was the mention about Graham Jones being in Liverpool at the moment, and that's quite interesting because I mentioned that book when the first mention of Tony Bloom's potential investment or involvement with Hearts came to light. I mentioned the How to Win the Premier League book that came out recently, which I've read, and Ian Graham, the author of that, he worked with his analytics company at Liverpool. So it's interesting. And the book is predominantly about how analytics was used in things like recruitment, and then also in things like not to make tactical decisions for the manager, but to inform them about certain events within games, because it's all to do with probabilities and how players kind of fit into certain systems and all those kind of things. And then they found in Jurgen Klopp a manager that really bought into all that stuff, because one of the points he makes is that every at the time of him writing, every team in the English Premier League will have a data analyst. How much they're listened to and how much authority they have will vary from club to club. And he says there won't be many where they have the input that's listened to. And I'm not talking about authority, but more like the input in group decisions that's kind of given equal weight to other things, like your likes of Brentford and Brighton, Liverpool, Tottenham, these kind of clubs. So it's quite interesting that he's down there at one of the places, learning from one of the places where it's kind of like the pinnacle of this. And it goes back to something earlier in his career where I think he spent a lot of time at elite academies before he took up one of his roles at Scotland as well.
It's I think it's encouraging that he's already getting there to look at getting into position to look at the sporting director side from a club thing, and he's learning while he's not maybe actually potentially in the role. I meant to message you earlier on, but I thought I would just save it until here, because I thought you might bring up the book. Andrew McKinlay brought that book down when he was talking.
Oh, did he?
So
there you go.
He's in the middle of reading that exact book, so he was kind of talking around that. Because I know someone's asked, when do you think we'll have an update on Tony Bloom? That's something we talked to Andrew McKinlay about, but because it's kind of the papers, that's embargoed for next week, so I can't really say too much. But again, there wasn't too much of an update on it, just because it's not. It's because of the commercially sensitive stuff. So, but there'll be more on that next week. So I think it's encouraging with Graham Jones. Obviously, his background different to Joe Savage. That he's been involved, and like you said, he's got that kind of background as well. And if it's learning more about the analytics sides, working, you think he's there to see Richard Hughes, the former midfielder as well. So that's really positive.
Any other takeaways from that interview or anything before we move on from Graham Jones? Anything else that was said in the interview about Graham Jones that you want to, or anything else that you picked up?
I should have made notes, but I'll just look at it just now. So long short list, 100 applicants. Because I said obviously names will drop off as they speak to them. I think when they're speaking to them over the next few days, which I think just is it's natural. And the other thing was which I found relatively interesting was the fact that he talked about the manager, the way whoever's coming in has to have. So the way the analytics is done is it looks at managers who have improved teams where they've been. Mm-hmm. So that I thought that was just an interesting tidbit from it, and obviously it goes to the fact that means the person will be relatively experienced in comparison to Stephen Naismith, because that was one of the concerns when Stephen Naismith was appointed.
Because there needs to be data there to analyse, basically. Is that what?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I think that's just the nature of, because it's hard to analyse a manager who's not managed.
Yeah, so that's basically that if they haven't managed before, they're not going to have any. I mean, it sounds simple to say, but I think that's what he was getting at. He without saying we're going to appoint a more experienced manager, he was kind of talking round it again without saying Stephen Naismith was too inexperienced, and we've learned from that. He kind of spoke around it and said that, by the very nature of who we're looking for, they need to have had experience of doing X.
Yeah, exactly. So that's encouraging. Obviously, they're looking for someone who wanting to improve the team, but I don't think it just means improving the team from just being bottom of the table, but they're improving the team from what Hearts' ambitions and aims are. Which we'll find out a bit more next week when more of the stuff that McKinlay said will get released. And I suppose the only other little thing was the mention of Aberdeen and this like Scandinavia, because there's been a lot of talk about a potential Scandinavian manager. But he was he's not ruling out a Scandinavian manager. He did say that he wanted to. He kind of talked about it being flavour of the month, just because Jimmy Daylan's doing really well doesn't mean you just automatically go for a Scandinavian manager and follow them like parts may have done in the past. But again, we'll see when it comes to the appointment just who is.
I was listening to you there. We are just going to come on to talk about the game, and as I expected, the team is kind of dropped just there while we were on air. Forrester's kept his place. Penrice back in. Mackay's in. Oh, are you right? Cool. Vargas,
yes, I was.
Kingsley look like players that have dropped out. So yeah. What should we say quickly about the game? I'm conscious that. Oh, brilliant! Thank you.
I was multitasking when I was answering the questions.
Right. Okay. We should just talk about the team selection and then get out of here then, because anything else we say beyond this point is going to be horrendously out of date for anybody who doesn't instantly listen to it. So, yeah, I mean, one of the things that stands out for me is Penrice coming back in. That gives us much more energy going up and down that side. You obviously lose a lot of experience in Kingsley, but as I said, the way we tried to play on Saturday there, I think we kind of missed Penrice a little bit, and we could have kind of done with his energy getting up and down a bit more. What are your initial thoughts on the team?
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm going to give myself a pat on the back for once in a long time. I was one away from getting it right, so pretty happy with that. And in general, I'm pretty content with it. I would have probably liked to seen. I'm just reconfiguring. Yeah, exactly. That's the one. I'm just reconfiguring because I think it'll be. I've got it up there as a 4-2-3-1, but I think it will actually be more like a 4-3-3 with Spittle and Devlin. Playing
basically Spittle replacing Grant.
Spittle replacing Grant, yeah. So interested to see how that midfield dynamic works. I would like to see
Mackay looked quite sharp when he came on.
Yeah, so again, I was
a bit wasteful, but he still looked. He got involved.
Yeah, so that's the one where I put my predicted lineup, and that was the one that got probably the most heat from fans questioning it. I know he's not the flavour of the month amongst a lot of Hearts fans.
The same fans that don't want Vargas. Who else are we going to put there?
I know. There's not a lot of there's not a lot of choice in terms of consistent performance in the final third, and I wrote about that in my predicted 11. So
we said it weeks ago about when we're starting to talk about the squad being bloated. It was but we still don't seem to have great wide options for all the players we have.
So like with Vargas, he's been off the boil recently. He started all but one game. So and he's just impact. He's still not scored, and I thought he was impacting games well at the start of the season, just with his pace and his kind of nuisance. But he's not really done that lately. So I thought it was natural for him to come out, and I just feel like Barry Mackay, someone who probably needs. You could say this about most a lot of players, but in the final third, but a run of games. I think Danda probably needs it more. We want to see more of him. He's only started 3 games this season, so yeah.
What it is about Danda?
It's a big night.
I don't know. Is it just like his physicality, and then when you're on a poor run like this, you just want bigger players or something? Is it because the guy's clearly got talent? I don't know why he seems to be because he's about the only player who's not been given a decent chance. You can still make an argument for some of maybe shunted about a bit too much, or they've been in and out a bit, but he seems to be the one who has really lacked getting starts. I mean, maybe other than Salazar, but that's a completely different story, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the only thing with Fox, and the only thing I can think of with Danda, is just the configuration of the midfield, and that because he's more of a 4-3-3 than 4-2-3-1. That's the only thing I can really think of. But you have to look back. He was like kind of the marquee signing, if you want. So it's hard to, because you can ask the manager as much as you want, but they're not going to give you the chapter and verse as to why exactly a player's not favoured. So I think that he's the one that Hearts fans want to see most of. I know, going by the comments that here is that Boateng is kind of dropped out, but again, I think that's the nature of what the what Fox wants. They only want one number 6. Just overkill playing in games, especially games on Saturday, games like this. You can't play Benny and Boateng. I think we talked about it. You play them against Celtic and Rangers, and then Benny. A couple
maybe
of the players
even
were
Sunday.
Yeah. A couple of the players have been saying that Benny looks like he's back to his best, like Benny at his best. So,
I want to make an apology to George Grant actually, because I watched that cornerback and I think he does mean it. Sorry, George Grant.
I suppose anyone else. I'm just looking at the comments. Graham says big night for Forrester, but I think it's a big night for a few players. Look at Forrester. I think big night for Spittle, big night for Barry Mackay, big night for Forrest as well. I said it. Forrest and Mackay neither have rekindled their best form at Hearts. Like Forrest last year was, I think, an important player, but you were hoping for him to just kind of go back to being just an important squad player. And then Barry Mackay, injuries last season killed him. So again, that's where he needs to run of games. And it's also could be a big night for Shanklin. He's one behind John Robertson's European goal record. So I think he needs 1 to equal it for 7, 2 to take first place of that as well.
Yeah, exactly. Let's hope he continues from the weekend there, because last season it wouldn't be too far off last season if he was to go on a run now where didn't score for X amount of games at the start of the season, and then look how that ended up. So
exactly. And I suppose the only other thing would say, and this may be a question for you, is Graham asking, could playing behind closed doors be a good thing for us tonight?
I'm not really sure. I mean, I think going by Minsk's form, they're pretty good at home, but they're fairly dodgy on the road. But they've had a few years' experience of playing in neutral venues at the same time. This is the first time they will have played in this venue, in this climate, and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I don't know. All I can think to say is to repeat what I said the other day, is that there's just so many unknowns about this team. As much as we want to dig in and know more about this team, it's difficult to know much about them. Throw into the mix that it's a neutral venue, I'm honestly not sure. But I think if we get a good performance, I think we get the same performance as we did from Hearts at the weekend, there's a good chance we can win it, because I think from the little we can tell, our league's stronger, and we're probably stronger than these guys, all else being equal. So if we can get things clicking like we did on Saturday and be a bit better in front of goal, then there's a good chance we can win this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably the last thing I'll say is that one of the last things I'll say. I'm sure the listeners will be glad of that. Is so Scotland coefficient, and notice he put up a really interesting thread, an informative thread on Dinamo Minsk, and he actually using the Opta, so he was using a ranking system, and it was Dinamo Minsk were actually ranked above Hearts and below Aberdeen. But I don't know how they produce that ranking. So I can't really say too much of like how much stock should be put in it. But it's definitely, even with that, it's definitely a game that we should be looking to win. And I know the team. I have no. The season's been rubbish, and there's a lot of. It's hard to be too positive, but this is a great opportunity, this tournament, to actually get into the knockout stages. Because looking at Scotland's coefficients tweet, it was. I'll get rid of this team. Looking at Scotland's coefficient team tweet, that if you got 7 points, you're almost guaranteed, pretty much guaranteed to progress. Yeah. You can do it with 6 points. Winning tonight is massive. Doing that was just a great way to start. It's something to build on, especially with Omonia and Nicosia coming to Tynecastle. And then if you've got a bit more momentum, you can win that, and you're like one step away from into the knockout stages. And also short term, just winning tonight, it would just give the team and fans such a buzz going to Aberdeen. I mean, Hearts is at the bottom of the table and sold out their allocation for Aberdeen on a Sunday Sunday afternoon. So yeah, just I think the fans are just wanting some positivity. So I'm really hopeful that this is the night that we finally get a win in the western banks of the Caspian Sea.
Well, fingers crossed, Joe. Fingers crossed. We're about an hour away from kick-off now, so I'll let you go get set up and all that. Thanks to everyone for joining us. Remember to check everything out at heartstandard.co.uk. You'll get all the reaction from tonight's match and then more going up tomorrow. And then we'll be back bringing you a video at some point, hopefully between now and the game on Sunday. But until then, speak to you all soon.
So I just sorry to jump in there. I will hopefully be able to do one tomorrow afternoon. My as Alexander says, you doing this pod from an Azerbaijani prison, Joe? No, hopefully not. Like I said, if things all go smoothly, then I will hopefully be able to do a video tomorrow afternoon recapping the game. But we'll see how my tiredness is. And Bebop Boop has put in a super chat request. Will the new gaffer sign any free agents? Do you think? I would say no. I think again, unless the analytics will be working on recruitment already, I think. But I reckon
it's a bit late now, isn't it?
Yeah, I reckon it'll be a view with January in mind. So I would very much doubt it. Wouldn't rule it out, but I would very much doubt it. And I think you're looking at January where there'll be business to be done. But again, there's a big squad, so wouldn't be surprised. New manager in, a potential bit of turnover in the January, but it's more likely next summer.
So anybody you were to sign, say it takes us 2 or 3 weeks to appoint a manager, and then free agent another week or two or something like that. Someone who hasn't had a club. Somebody who hasn't been attached to a club since the end of the last transfer window, how long would they then take to get up to full match sharpness? You're probably talking about the territory where you can start to sign players again in January anyway. So I don't know how much value there would be in looking at free agents anyway. Yeah,
exactly. I think I'm speaking like a manager. I'm not a fan of the free agent market. I think it's harder. People talk about the January transfer window being harder. So I think it's probably signing free agents at this time of the season. It's probably harder to get it right than get it wrong. So maybe in
September or February or something like that. Then yeah. But I think beyond that, you're starting to not give yourself enough games. Once they're up to speed, you're not giving yourself enough games basically for it to be of any kind of value.
But yeah, I absolutely. And but thank you very much for the question. That was a good one to end on. But I've just ruined your goodbye, Craig. But I thought I'll just give a wee bit of info for the next video. Hopefully, we can do one tomorrow around this time. But we'll play it by ear.
No, that's fine. We got another good question out of it, so it was all worth it. But yeah, enjoy the game, Joe, and we will hopefully speak to you all again tomorrow. If not, we'll be back soon enough anyway. See you all soon.
Bye-bye.
No problem.